Hi, hello, my name is Ivo. If you don't know me, I'm a machine learning engineer. I work in cybersecurity. I think I've been coming to AI Tinkers since long as I can remember. Okay, so my presentation, because I do love to yap a lot, it's really simple, right? As an engineer, especially as a machine learning engineer, what companies usually want to work for is like really simple pipelines, right? Things that just work without, the manager going like, why is this too complicated? Why is the code base so bloated? Why isn't my Canico runner not working because the code base is too big, right? So I kind of had an idea to make something really simple, like Vizdantic for visualizations, right? So when you first think of how can I get an LLM to visualize something for me, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to get the code for it, and the LLM can then execute the code, and then we can have the visualization. It's a really simple problem, right? But having it inside of a pipeline is actually quite crucial because, for example, let's say you're building a database LLM that's going to, answer questions about your database, but then also the C-suite also wants visualizations in the chat at the same time. How do you make it that's really, concurrent and accurate? Well, for my answer for this is a thing called Vizdantic, which I built here. It's so simple that it's stupid. And when something is stupid, that's a good idea. So the only dependency we have pretty much for it is Vizdantic. That's literally the only single dependency that you want. You have optional dependencies, of course, like Plotly, which is the only one that it supports so far. But I try to keep it as tiny and minimal as possible to the finest grain, and I wanted lines of code to be as minimal as possible. And its one and only true objective is to make visualizations for any type of LLM, for tool calling, for inside of your IDE or your terminal. When you run it, it will just make you a visualization of your choice and the styling of your choice consistently every single time. That is the entire thing of it, and it's so basic. This is where it lives. This is the spec, right? You have your viz spec class, which pretty much every visualization needs a title or an optional legend or an optional backend, for example. It might be Plotly or Matplotlib, etc., blah, 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 right? And then you have your different types of visualizations. You have your Cartesian spec. So for example, we go here for your Cartesian charts, which is a bar, line, area, or scatter. So on, so on, so on. You can have point charts with your point spec. You have all these specs, right? So I think I have like 20 specs that cover all kinds of specs that you can do for a visualization. And then you pretty much go to your adapter. So the smart thing about an adapter is with Vizdantic, have this viz spec adapter, is instead of it going through every single thing, whatever the LLM says, whichever spec adapter I want to use, Vizdantic will just grab that. And that's in the big O notation of O1 time. So it's like extremely quick. It's super simple. Once you have that, you can do validate. You can validate your spec. What did the LLM say? Which spec does it want to use? Is it valid? Once it's valid, perfect, amazing. And then you have your schema. And this, all it does is it gets your spec that the LLM returned in a JSON, and you can put it into a prompt. So you can just place hold schema into a prompt. So you can prompt it any way you like, anyhow the way you like, but the LLM will only choose from the specs that it can do here, all the visualization types. And that's it. That's it in a nutshell. So I made a little demo for you guys. So how to use this library or this repo is really simple. So for example, in this case, I have a visualization model, right? So I have my prompt. I load in my prompt from a thing called the Hydra config, which is pretty great because, for example, you can have your visualization config where you can, have your model, your temperature, your region, if whatever cloud provider you're doing, and this is your prompt. It's a very small prompt. All I said is, hey, you have this dummy data. Hey, this is a schema from the Py file we saw earlier on, and this is the user request. If the user wants visualization, you give it to them. If they don't, you explain the data. That's it. That's all you need to do, really. You're just like that. And all there is to it then, from this side of it, from Vizdantic, is you have your schema, your validate, and then your render, which is an optional plugin for Plotly. So for example, when you download Vizdantic, you can do it manually, or you can just download pip install or UV install or UV add Plotly by itself, right? You don't need to do it. You can make your own visualization if you want to. Spec validates what did the LLM say for the spec, then you render the spec, and also you have a team. So this is one of the coolest things, is you can build your own team, which is pretty much a function. So I chose to go with Plotly. You can have a Google team, for example. Here's your Google colors, here's your font, your title, how it should look like. The LLM does none of that. All the LLM will do is just generate a visualization, but you'll have your team set in a function. And in that sense, all you have to literally do is get your fig equals render the spec and the data, which is your, whatever you're using, your table you're using to render it from, and fig equals Google team fig, fig.show, and that's it. So simple. Right, let's have fun and play around with it. So I'm just using a thing called the rich terminal, which kind of makes it look quite nice. I hope I'm still connected to my hotspot. Oh, I'm connected to baseline. Okay, cool. Okay, there you go. So I have dummy data. I have a quarter revenue, expenses, and profits. So I'm going to say, what was the total revenue from all quarters? Okay, I'm actually going to make it better. Is that better for you guys? Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how you can still see the screen sharing thing. Oh yeah, thank you. Okay, I said Warters, but whatever. Okay, so the LLM is going to go on from all my Warters. So it says, here's your Warters, your quarters, and then would you like a visualization? Yeah, and then I'm going to say like this, create a visualization because this thing doesn't have memory. Spoiler alert. I know, you probably think everyone has memory when they build these, but no. This is just thing, okay. And then you have your visualization, and it's using my Google team pattern. And I can say, make any visualization, give me info, make it 3D. I'm going to be thinking. This is using a Cloud Sonnet, or Opus actually, from AWS Bedrock. Okay, interesting. Looking at your data, I can create a visualization that has numeric value. Okay, it's actually giving me suggestions. Okay, yeah. So I don't want suggestions. This is a prompting issue, by the way. Okay, there you go. And now you have your 3D visualization in your specific theme or font of color. So you can do this for as long as you like. You can pick whatever spec you want. You can have a point graph distribution spec, parts, matrix, flow spec, hierarchy, so on and on. So I'm going to close it at that, but I just want to say, what is the point of this? Like, why the hell would you build something so basic? Well, the problem is, like, I think the trend now with AI engineering, especially for like enterprise, is you have this huge pipeline and you're just trying to make things work all the time. But as it grows bigger and bigger, deterministic stuff starts to get less deterministic. So with this is all validated before it even hits the LLM. There's no code involved in it. There's no code function execution really, except a team. All it does is it literally gets a Pydantic JSON back to you that's a validated, hey, this is my spec, and it chooses a spec for you based on the user's request, and that's it. Yeah, if you'd like to give me a star, I'd be very happy. Thank you very much.